Joining me now is the retired General H.R. McMaster. He was President Trump's second national security advisor. General McMaster, welcome back to Meet the Press, sir.
Thanks, Chuck. Good to be with you. Good morning.
Good morning. Look, we're coming to the end of our presence in Afghanistan. And when you look back at 20 years, you've worn a few hats when it comes to dealing with either helping to create policy in Afghanistan or enact it. What's been your biggest mistake or biggest miscalculation over 20 years?
Well, I think we all share responsibility for it's not a 20-year war. It's a one-year war fought 20 times over. And what the basis for the problems that we've encountered in Afghanistan is certainly the enemies that we've been fighting there. As you can see today, enemies have a say in the future course of events. And there are consequences when you surrender to a terrorist organization. But it hasn't been a 20-year war. It's been a one-year war fought 20 times over with ineffective strategies based on flawed assumptions. Flawed assumptions about the nature of the enemy, flawed assumptions about what was necessary to achieve a sustainable outcome there. And of course, what's sad about it is this war ended in self-defeat, Chuck. I mean, we had a sustainable effort in place several years ago that if we had sustained it, we could have prevented what's happening now. But instead, what we did, Chuck, is actually we surrendered to a jihadist organization and assumed that there would be no consequences for that. And we're seeing the consequences today.
Was the core mistake taking our eye off of Afghanistan and invading Iraq? Did that distract the Pentagon? Did that distract our diplomats? Did that distract us from the mission, especially considering the reasons we went into Iraq turned out not to be true?
Hey, Chuck, there were a series of mistakes, right? For the first was assuming that it might be easy, right, just to depose the Taliban and then something good happens. And so the short-term approach we took to what was a long-term problem actually lengthened the war and made it more costly. And then when we did reinforce the effort there in 2009, President Obama announced a reinforced security effort and announced the withdrawal of troops on a timeline at the same time, and then said to the Taliban, we want to negotiate an agreement with you, and here's our schedule for departure. How does that work in war, Chuck, right? War is a contest of wills. And then I think what we had during the Trump administration was initially the first time we had a sound, sustainable, reasoned approach to Afghanistan in August 2017, and then the president abandoned it, and he doubled down on the same flaws of the Obama administration. I mean, Chuck, how does it make sense to tell them we're leaving and then say we want to negotiate a settlement? And what that resulted in is concession after concession to the Taliban, and we got nothing for it. And as soon as you set a date, we're out by May 1st under the Trump administration, and the numbers of troops we're going to have there, what can you do except essentially effect a surrender? And then to hear this language today, that we're pretending that we can partner with the Taliban for security around the Kabul airport, or we can partner with the Taliban for security against al-Qaeda when those two organizations are completely intertwined. What I would like to see is our government stop pretending. And a really good way to honor our servicemen and women who gave their lives on a modern-day frontier between barbarism and civilization is to end our self-delusion and confront the reality that this endless war, this forever war, has not ended because we left.
Is there any way, though, do you think, it sounds like you believe the Taliban could have been defeated, and it sounds like a lot of other people don't believe that was the case.
I do believe it, and I think it happened. I mean, the Taliban was unable to accomplish their objectives through the use of force with a relatively small level of troops there. I mean, pick a number, 8,500, 10,000. But what was important about that number, and a very low cost in connection with casualties and the financial cost associated with it, is preventing what you're seeing happening now, which is the establishment of a terrorist state in Central and South Asia, a terrorist state that is already going to be, and already is, a magnet for jihadist terrorists who pose a threat to all civilized peoples. And also, I think what's really important to recognize about our sustained effort there is that who was doing the fighting against the Taliban and other jihadist terrorist organizations like ISIS-K and like al-Qaeda? It was the Afghans. Our forces there were not directly involved in the fight any longer. They were enabling the Afghans to bear the brunt of the fight. But Chuck, you know what we did? We delivered psychological blow after psychological blow to the Afghan government and security forces on our way out.
But let me ask you this. I guess I want to put up something that the Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, John Sopko, told Voice of America last month. He said this about sort of the American government in general. We exaggerated, we over-exaggerated, our generals did, our ambassadors did, all of our officials did, to go to Congress and the American people about, we're just turning the corner. We turned the corner so much, we did 360 degrees. We're like a top. And I just heard you just now, before I brought this quote up, saying, you know, the Afghan security forces were taking the fight. And I want to take you at your word, but we look and we see what happened, and I think a lot of the American public says, oh yeah, really? Do you understand the skepticism?
Well, I do understand the skepticism, but you just have to look at the reality, Chuck. Okay, hey, I agree. Afghanistan was not Denmark, Chuck, right? But it didn't need to be Denmark. Of course, there was corruption in the government. The security forces, there was corruption in the security forces as well, that were hollowing out these institutions as we were trying to build them. But they were on a path to slowly strengthening over time. And what is, I think, most lamentable about the policy under the Trump administration and what the Biden administration doubled down on and failed to reverse is that we actually strengthened the Taliban and weaken the Afghan government and security forces on our way out. Hey, if we were going to leave, Chuck, why didn't we just get the hell out? I mean, why did we do that? And so it was just impossible, I think, for the Afghan government to withstand the blows of not being included in the negotiations and then forcing the Afghan government to release to release 5,000 of some of the most heinous people on earth, who immediately went back to terrorizing the Afghan people, and then to set the timeline, say we're not going to support you, withdraw the vast majority of our support for them.
General McMaster, one of the former national security advisors to President Trump, you wrote a book about Vietnam. I have a feeling we're going to have books about Afghanistan being written for decades as we unpack what went wrong here. General McMaster, thanks for your time and your perspective.
Thank you, Chuck.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.